Good evening, folks, and thank you for watching Common Sense. Tonight, I have an individual that you've all been waiting to listen to, and his name is Bob Burke, the first selectman of Bethel. And I'm sure you've got a lot of questions, and hopefully he'll provide a lot of answers tonight. Bob, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me once again, Bob.
Okay.
Pleasure to be here.
I've got to open up this show by saying one thing. The more things change, the more they seem to stay the same.
I've kind of been in the same situation 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Same group of people.
You and I were here.
Disagreed with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were primarying, at that point you were primarying Judy Novacek.
Correct.
And Bob Legnard.
Yes.
And you were a newcomer to the Republican Party at that point, and your running mate at that point was Paul Satkowski.
Exactly.
That was 4 years ago. And you beat Judy Novacek and Bob Legnard by 2-1.
Exactly.
From what I remember. And it's sort of interesting, and it's sort of ironic, and it's sort of puzzling as to why we're in the same situation here after 4 years in office. Can you explain to the viewers what happened?
Well, over the last 4 years, I've done a tremendous amount of work. We've taken on every challenge that could be taken on. The high school, the library, the paving of roads, the sewer project, trouble with our water department and sewer, being in the red in our water department. And in the red in our sewer department. We need a tank that everybody knows about that Danbury denied, that we have to go back in with it again, and we're before the Department of Health in the state of Connecticut right now to make sure we can get, I mean, that's critical for the town of Bethel. We need that for fire safety and pressure. So there's a lot of things that I continue to do on a daily basis. I don't dress in a tie and coat anymore because I've got so much construction going on. I'm in the construction all the time, so I'm wearing jeans and denim.
But with everything you've done, why didn't the Republican Town Committee re-nominate you?
Well, over the last couple of years, I found it exceptionally hard, and I needed help. I don't have enough help. So basically, Mr. Satkowski and I have kind of gone separate ways. People refer to me as having my way but the highway, the bully kind of an attitude. Well, that's not so. I'm not looking for credit as I go forward. I don't want to announce things to a newspaper. What I want to do is move forward every day. I'm working very closely with all our department heads. We have tremendous cooperation. I've been getting instructions from some of the people in the back room. You can't, and what I mean by that is you have town committee situations. Well, a town committee consists of 25 to 35 people. The discussion there is a good discussion, but is not where the laws and the legislature and the running of your government is to be done. The running of your government is done in your meetings of boards and commissions.
Elected boards and commissions.
Elected boards. That's what they're there for. And my job is to tell the people the truth and give them the opportunity to vote any time you can. A great example of that is in the last election, we put forth in charter revision the splitting of the budget. That's one of the things. You sat on charter revision. Mm-hmm. I get accused of not letting people have a seat at the table. I've let more people have a seat at the table from different attitudes of society, from different perspectives,
walks of life
than anybody else. Yeah. And it is made for a much better government. Yeah. I have a member of the BAC that sits on the Public Utility Commission, right, and he's doing a phenomenal job.
Billy Michael. Yeah.
Could you imagine Billy Michael voting for an increase in your water rates?
Right. Absolutely. But let's drill down into the the politics of this particular situation and why you were forced to have to petition to force a primary, a Republican primary. I mean, frankly, they need to. I think the voters are definitely deserving of an explanation in terms of what went on behind the scenes politically, and I think it had a lot to do with Satkowski. Can you elaborate on that?
It definitely did. Over the last year, Paul and I have not worked well together. He's done things on his own that weren't appropriate. And in going forward, I had trouble going forward with him. Mr. Slifkin, on the other hand, for the last 3 years, he ran with me last time for the Board of Finance. He's done a splendid job. I placed him, as you know, because you were placed on there 3 years ago on the High School Building Committee. He ended up chairing that. He was not ready to chair it when we first put it together, but once he's a quick study. He's a great learner. He comes in every day. He's in the town hall, and he's done it for 30 years. He's a member of the Park and Rec Baseball Association. He was a member of the Park and Rec Commission, but since he's on the Board of Finance, he hasn't done that. He's just been a tremendous asset.
Would you say that Bill Slifkin, the biggest reason that project finally got finished on time?
Bill Slifkin. Bill Slifkin and Bob Trippi.
So essentially,
the whole committee was there,
right.
But Bill and Bob went above and beyond. Yeah. They were in the building constantly. It's kind of like Berry School. Right. I was in Berry School on a regular and a daily basis.
Right. So you had some rough patches toward the last 6 months of that project.
We had. Look at all the asbestos scares we had. Yeah. Look at the situations that came up. 2 years ago, when we were on the project, I had the Democratic candidate turning us into to OSHA. They were turning the job into OSHA. I mean, that was ridiculous. OSHA came down and there's no violations. These are just things. They would rather try to hurt me than to help the people of Bethel.
Right.
And I am a believer in tell the people the truth and let them vote. You don't make decisions in a room with 25 people for the people of Bethel. Mm-hmm. You put ideas together, you bring them forward.
So what happened? 3 or 4 months ago, you went to the town committee, and you...
everybody knew I would not run, and I was not going to run with Paul.
You were clear about that?
Yes, I was very clear about that.
And what was their reaction?
Well, they were, Paul's going to run. I said, okay, then I'm not going to run.
Right.
And until I believe it was the 22nd or 23rd, it was a Wednesday, they had a town committee meeting, and 18, 19 people in there. From what I heard, I was not in the room, but what I was told the next day, which was a Thursday, is you have to run. You can't leave us with Matthew Knickerbocker becoming the selectman.
So the town committee, the Wednesday before the caucus on Monday, was in verbal support.
No, the caucus was on Tuesday. Right. This was the Wednesday before the Tuesday
6 days before the caucus.
Exactly.
They officially were in full support of you.
And
3 days later,
a representative came into my office on Thursday in the afternoon and explained everything to me. He was sent there to get me to run.
Right.
And I said, fine, I will run, and I will run with Bill Slifkin as my second. If that's okay, those are my conditions.
Right. Now, why do you feel that you deserve to have the opportunity to select your running mate?
If you're running a $60 million a year budget with the projects that we have, with the economic conditions that we have, not just in the state of Connecticut, the country and the world. I mean, look what's happening in the country and in the world. They say the recession is turning. People say it's not turning. We haven't hit the bottom. We've hit the bottom. The Dow Jones, I don't understand the stock market. It's been going up. It's the last 5 months.
It's turned into a horse race.
Yeah, it's people are betting at the win window.
Right,
and some of them are winning and some of them are losing.
But isn't it true that some of the people in the town committee on that Wednesday meeting before the Tuesday caucus actually expressed the fact that the first selectman, they voiced their opinion that the first selectman had the right to choose his own.
Absolutely. After I talked to the representative that came into my office on Thursday, I was told to call the Mr. Beeble, who's the vacancy committee chairman.
Right.
And I clearly said I will run. He said, that's great. I need Bill Slifkin to be my running mate. I work well with Bill Slifkin. There's a lot of work that's got to be done here. You've got to pay close attention to the money. You've got to be able to keep your benefit program for your seniors, your veterans in place. If the seniors could be made a little bit better, but that's the Board of Finance that does that. The veterans is maximized. With that being said, I need somebody I can work with. Mr. Slifkin engineered the security system In the high school, nobody put it in there. It was left out. We had a $270,000 flood in the high school under new construction because it wasn't handled right. And it's not up to my building maintenance or me to be in the high school watching things. It's up to the people on the Board of Education to make sure those schools are looked after when it comes to security.
Was Paul Setkowski involved in negotiating for the security system?
No.
Was Paul...
Nor was anybody else other than Bill Slifkin.
Was Paul Setkowski involved on a day-to-day basis with helping you finish that?
No, not at all. Bill Slifkin was on a day-to-day
What
basis.
was Paul Setkowski's involvement during the high school renovation project?
He came to 2 meetings a month on the Board of Selectmen.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to get that for the record. Okay.
Absolute truth.
So explain to the viewers out there that obviously want to hear the truth on this matter. What was the reaction, apparently, what was the reaction of the town committee after you announced that you wanted to run with Bill Slifkin?
At that point, I believe it was, I sent a press announcement to the newspaper because Eileen Fitzgerald, who's our local reporter, asked me to please let her know, and she was on vacation, so I called up Mr. Cummings, and I called up Mr. Miller. Well, actually, I didn't call him. We sent him an email. I don't email. I had an email sent. And with that being done, I had a press announcement that said I would run with Bill Slifkin.
Yeah, we all saw.
And everybody was okay with that, as far as I knew. Well, the next thing I knew, I read the paper on Monday morning, and it says that Mr. Zakowski was certainly seeking to continue to run. Now, if they had told me that, I wouldn't have thrown my hat in the ring. I was not going to run on the 22nd day of July.
Right. Did you know in advance that Larry Kravis was
I had no idea.
Running?
No idea. He didn't even come to the caucus.
Absolutely.
He wasn't present at the caucus for his nomination.
The caucus voted
which is all right, I guess. I mean, there's...
a candidate that didn't show up at the caucus.
Right.
You know, so there was some sort of fix that was in, obviously, and they had...
I mean, you will hear now a lot of, well, you got an old guard Republican situation that really doesn't like me.
But at the caucus, I counted the heads at the caucus, and I noticed that it was like a flashback to 4 years ago. You had a huge amount of Novacek supporters.
Yeah.
You had a huge amount of
Mrs. Novacek was there herself.
Kozlowski, Bob Kozlowski, he brought in a bunch of his friends from St. Mary's.
Which is fine. I mean, that's how a caucus is run.
Absolutely. But there was clearly a repeat of what happened 4 years ago. This group never, ever embraced you,
well,
no matter what you've done.
There was a little bit of a difference, and I'm really glad to see that there was a lot of younger people that came this time. And those younger people, there was a lot there that were there to support me. Young, 35 to 40 years old, that were there and came specifically to support me.
Do you think that if you had said that you would run with Setkowski again, there would have been a problem at the caucus?
Oh, I doubt very seriously if there
So this is really all about Paul Setkowski?
Absolutely. I believe so.
And do you get the feeling that he's bigger than the party, or he thinks he's bigger than the party?
He obviously wants his position.
I mean, because from a political point of view, to me, I think it's reckless that a party would just throw the head of their party, the first selectman who's won 2 landslide victories and carried the entire party line in a landslide fashion for the last 2 elections under the bus.
Let me explain this, too.
Okay.
Mr. Zakowski is the vice chairman of the Republican Party, and Mr. Improta is the chairman. Mr. Improta and I don't see eye to eye.
Why is that?
Well, he thinks he's running Bethel. Nobody's running Bethel but the people of Bethel.
I've been accused of that too, but I can tell you, folks, I can tell you right now that I have absolutely no influence on you. You talk to a lot of people.
Everybody comes in and they talk to me.
Right.
I'm in the hallway.
Right.
I put chairs in the hallway. And I did that because my legs aren't as good as they used to be, and I sit there and I talk to the people that come in. Right. What can I do for you? That's how you run. That's my belief on how you run a town government.
Nick Ellison, you were very close. What happened there?
The police chief and the captain in the police department work directly for the first selectman. They do not work for the police commission, and the police commissioner The police commissioner is not in charge. The police commission is responsible for making policy for the police department and monitoring their budget. They may make a decision as to paint a crosswalk, some signage, but they do not. The man that runs the police department is the chief of police. The police commission does not negotiate with the union. The first selectman negotiates with the union. The first selectman will take advice possibly or comment from a police commission.
So somebody overstepped their authority. Is that
extremely. Extremely.
And
it put us in a situation where it jeopardized the chief of police authority, and it has created not once but twice the entire troop, the union troop, having a no confidence vote against the chief of police.
So he overstepped his authority and tried to control a situation that by charter and by statute he had absolutely no authority. Right. And that was the beginning of the end in terms of your relationship with Nick Ellis.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad that we're talking about this, and I hope.
Let me explain something to you about Mr. Ellis.
Right.
In the middle of a snowstorm, I would get a call, and he would tell me to open the roads up now.
Oh.
I'm the one with my highway supervisor, who's the assistant public works director, and my public works director, who makes those decisions. But he knew how to play and plow snow better than I did, which he didn't. You had 24 storm situations this year. Normally we have 14. We busted our sand budget by $30,000. Now, I got you 10 more storms covered this year than last year for only $30,000. $3,000 a storm. Now, that is good management. And at times, I would sand the road quick. We'd get them out early because we were watching the weather. We knew we were to have ice. I got a good layer of sand down with salt. Knowing and letting the snow sit on top of that. Because you got plenty of traction, you'd let it get to 4 inches before I pushed it. All right? That was done on purpose. And it was done over and over again to conserve material. So
now, not to change the subject, because these are important things that we're talking about. Your record speaks for itself, Bob. And
nobody's ever done as much as I have.
The irony here is that I know one thing, that when someone tries to tell you what to do in that capacity, in your capacity as a first selectman, when someone like Nick Ellis calls you up and tells you when to plow the roads, that's overstepping his authority.
Right.
And I know that you don't react very well when someone does that. You'll take suggestions.
I take suggestions in a heartbeat.
But
you have come in and mentioned things
we
to
all
me.
have. Yeah.
I've had a lot of people come in. I've had people come in to advise me on what kind of vehicles to buy when we're buying vehicles.
If they're advising you and giving you ideas, not telling you what
exactly.
To do. Right. Because the way you operate, I know, is you listen.
A long time I listen.
Your own counsel.
And after I listen to you, I will believe you, but I'll go read about it.
Right, and you'll verify it.
I verify it over and over. And I pick up the phone, even my public works directors, my engineer. They tell me, and I still ask others.
Right. Now
you're a fool if you don't check and recheck.
Well, I mean, it's no accident that you've had, frankly, the best record of a 4-year term in Bethel's history in terms of what you've accomplished. You have, in essence, epitomized.
You've had $60 million worth of construction projects.
Well, you've epitomized the slogan, doing more with less. That's what you've done.
The best possible product, the least possible price.
Now, they recently did a TV show. Your opponents.
I've had my opponent question how I think.
Well,
They FOI'd how I thought.
right. It's pretty bizarre. It really is. You're a Democrat opponent at some point. Well, now obviously you're running against a Republican first selectman candidate, challenger, and a Democrat. We won't focus on the Democrats at this point because we have a primary to get through. Let me ask you...
Let's see who calls me the worst dirty name.
Well, I know that was one of the reasons why you were hesitating as to why you wanted to run, and that's already started. 2 years ago, that was a very nasty campaign. And let me say this to the viewers, one thing you have to understand, if you can't beat a man's record, then what do? You go after his personal life. And that's, frankly, what's happened here. You're not noticing people criticizing Bob Burke's public record because you can't criticize it with what has been accomplished, with the taxes being kept at an all-time low over the last 4 years. There's really nothing you can do there. And with the message you inherited and what you've been able to accomplish with that mess,
in the 155-year history of Bethel, nobody has ever been able to give you on the town side of government less than you paid the year before.
And that's what's happened here.
This year it happened.
You actually
minus .73.
You out-trumped Cliff Hergen. Cliff Hergen in '95
zeroed it, and he used the fund balance to do it.
He went to the kiddie bank. And let's talk about
I minused your budget, and I added $700,000 into your general fund.
You know what?
Which gives you a 10% fund balance, which when you bond this end of November, December, we're at .57. I just rolled over a bond for a 3 to 4 month period for 0.57%. This saved you another $500,000.
You don't get enough credit for all the money you've saved the town, and we will have other shows where we'll talk about that because we're running out of time. But what I'm concerned about is this: the voters of this community, most of them already realize that you're the one that they need to put back in.
You're headed for a hard time over the next couple of years.
Absolutely,
a hard time.
The last thing you
don't have a state budget yet.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem.
$8 million in revenue comes to this town from the state. If we don't get a good portion of that, we have a serious problem.
Well, you'll need someone who understands government to the point that you do to watch the pennies so the dollars take care of themselves.
Benjamin Franklin.
That's what you've been doing for 4 years, and that's one of the major concerns that I have. That there's no one that's running against you that knows anywhere near as much about infrastructure repair as you do.
You will hear 5-year plans. You'll hear rhetoric. You'll hear. I'm not going to tell you a 5-year plan. I'm working on the 5th year of a 5-year plan is about to begin.
Right. How about fiscal management? You started this particular fiscal year essentially looking at a $900,000 deficit.
Correct.
What's the first thing you do as a responsive leader? What's the first thing you did back in December?
I notified all the boards and commissions that we were in a revenue shortage.
Right. And
then we went after to collect all the taxes we could. We went to the attorney. We've had tax sales. We've raised better than $250,000 on the tax sales now. The revenues we picked up, our collection rate through, hard work by our tax collecting, our office, the tax collection, Ms. Skacko,
right.
98.7%. We plan in our budget 98% for collection.
And
we're 0.7% above it in collection.
And with all that hard work, what's the net result of that particular effort? You just closed the year out, and what did you do?
We're in the black.
So in other words, did you have to take any money?
Nothing will have to be removed from surplus.
Right. And how did that happen?
The Board of Education, for the first time ever, returned $142,000.
Do you think you had something to do with that?
When I told them in November that you were responsible for a certain percentage of the money, and this is what you need to give us back, we were told that they could bring $135,000 back. At that point, my share on the town side should have been somewhere just under $200,000. I locked down $261,000. Locked it down. We never spent it. Some of that was road paving. We locked down the spring road paving budget. Unfortunately, we couldn't have used it anyway because it rained. You had 9 inches of rain in June and 13 inches of rain in July.
Right. And that's, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people are belly aching because the roads aren't being paved.
By November, Payne Road will be paved, Hawleyville Road will be paved. We will walk down Benedict Road into Walnut Hill. And all of those areas in the sewer will be paved. And the sad part of it is, the sewer project put forth by Novacek and Legnard never had the road-to-road, curb-to-curb paving in it. What you got out there is what was put through in the project in the original referendum. We are still on budget because I made 2 huge changes in the way that the job has been laid out. 2 huge changes.
Would your opponents have been able to figure that out?
Never.
I mean, that's a fact.
Never.
I mean, and these are the concerns that I and many other voters have in this community, that why on earth would we throw a seasoned first selectman, chief executive officer who
Backroom politics.
made tough decisions that have benefited this town and saved this town hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you know what? Let me.
That's why I have the reputation, my way, or the highway.
Right. Your Republican opponents, okay, have actually tried to embarrass you and suggest that there isn't enough economic development, or that they need to hire somebody to bring in more business into this community. Bob, what's the #1 incentive that major developers look for when they come into a community?
A stable tax base.
What have you done for the last 4 years?
Stabilize the tax base.
There's nothing else you need to do. That's the bottom line.
Let me explain something else to you. We had an industrial park on Worcester Street. My side of the aisle, the Republican Party was in power and changed that zone from industrial to residential. We now have 300 units are going to be built there. Houses. Houses don't bring in revenue.
Right.
They cost you revenue.
And that was done by some of the Novacek, Legnard people.
Right.
Absolutely. Listen, folks, obviously what we have is a classic case of Bethel politics where people who are, frankly, have no business being anywhere near town hall in terms of running it, are once again trying to exert their political power for God knows what reasons. They're not putting the best interests of this community at heart, because here's a man that has obviously earned your vote for re-election, and he's actually being forced to primary. And the good news is you've gotten enough signatures. There is a primary officially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Today it became official at 4 o'clock.
Right. We have to go now, but I mean, we're gonna be back at you, folks, every Friday night. Don't put it on your calendar. Make sure you watch us every Friday night at 7:30. We're going to be on for the next 10 or 12 weeks, God willing. Thank you.